Hi everyone, it's Beck here from the Trauma Informed Teachers Australia and author of Chasing Normal. I wanted to jump on and have a little bit of a chat about this time of year for a lot of students, particularly our most vulnerable and our most traumatised students, and maybe bring awareness to the difficulties that this time of year might bring for some of these children. For a lot of them, they knowingly or unknowingly are moving away from the school they've been at. And also the anticipation of switching classrooms to another grade, which for many students can be quite anxiety ridden because they become so used to you throughout the year. They could become very attached to you, and the thought of leaving and moving to a new teacher and have to form new relationships and new attachments can be quite frightening. And as I said, a student that is actually moving away can be quite difficult for them to suddenly realize that perhaps their only safe space that they've known is going to be taken away from them. Now, I wanted to read just a couple of inserts from my memoir, Chasing Normal, to just kind of give you an idea of what school meant for me and what it was like for me when I actually was abruptly removed from my classroom at the end of grade 4. And as I said, I didn't know that I was leaving this particular grade, and it was actually quite traumatic for me to have to leave. But I want to just read you first a quick excerpt of what school actually meant for me, and just to give you an idea of what some of these students rely on when they come to school. School was my only solace, an escape from control, punishment, and abuse. My only chance to play and be a kid. I sidled up to my teachers for any ounce of nurturing, warmth, encouragement, and attention. Most days I showed up in survival mode, spaced out to the noise around me. Most days I'd say something unconsciously witty, causing spontaneous laughter from the teacher and kids. These were rare moments where life sprinkled colour before I'd revert back to the frightened, withdrawn child I'd become to survive. So school was a very important part of my life, particularly because of what I was living at home without any nurturing caregivers to rely on. And so I found myself in a situation where I was actually taken out of class, and I didn't get to say goodbye to my teacher. And that was extremely difficult. It's still a day that is very vivid in my memory. But I just want to give you a little bit of an insight into what I wrote when I left that day. I stared at the school and surrounding streets as the landscape faded into the distance. I would miss my school, my teacher who I looked forward to seeing every day. I wondered if my teacher knew where I was going and if he would miss me. Would he wonder why I abruptly left the school without saying goodbye? I hoped he understood that I couldn't stay. I'd hoped my teacher knew how much he meant to me. And he sure did, because if you've been following me and my story, I was able to meet that teacher who I hadn't seen since that day, 39 years later, earlier this year. So it was such a poignant part of my life that I got to do. But I wanted to bring that up as just a bit of a reminder that some students right now will be starting to feel the anxiety of the change that's coming, whether knowing or not knowing. And I think it's just a really important time to remember to lean in, to observe any changes in behaviour, any increased anxiety, any changes in mood, and just their whole entire attitude to school in general. You know, because it can be extremely frightening for these students, particularly, like I said, if they've really grown to form a connection with you, as many of you do. It's such a heart-centered career for us as teachers, but a lot of these kids just really look to teachers for care, nurturing and support. So just lean into that, notice any changes, and just use those opportunities to just give them some extra care, some extra nurturing, some extra support, and just provide, you know, some reassurance that if they are just switching grades and new teachers, that you'll still be around, and for them that can bring comfort as well and lessen that anxiety for them. So I also wanted to mention that I've recently released a online session called My Traumatised Brain, and it's a kind of a blend of my lived experience and the neuroscience in how trauma actually affects brain development and how the brain is structured and why that's important as far as trauma and how that disrupts learning, retention, engagement and relationships. So it is a fairly new session, but so far I've got fantastic feedback from teachers who just need to understand particularly that structure of the brain. It's actually really, really important when we think about being able to reach our students cognitively. There's things that we need to do in line with how the brain is literally developed in a sequence in being able to reach our students, particularly our most traumatized and most vulnerable. So as I said, it's a great online session that I've developed with the neuroscience and how it related to my lived experience and the effect of using the sequence of the brain actually affected my ability and improved my ability to learn. So as I said, I've had fantastic feedback from teachers. So I'll pop that link in the comments section below, and so you can go and have a look at it and see what you think. But otherwise, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.